Okay, let's let people kind of filter in. Avneet is here. Hello, Avneet, Jackie, all of our humans. I love it. Andrella. Hi, Andrella. This is the most fun part about doing Zooms is you get to see, like, as all the attendees start to populate, it's super fun. Let's just give it another minute or two to let people filter in. You guys have your beverages? You have a beverage, a snack. This is a casual lady chat. All right, let's get started. So, hi everybody. Andrella says hello. Hi, Andrella. Great use of the chat feature. I was about to get to that. I want you guys to all use the chat feature while we're having this conversation. Happy Friday. We've had a little hiatus from our Friday chats, and it is nice to be back. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Holly Amaya, and together with my partner Anne-Marie Hoftailing, I run a company called Story Imprinting that teaches companies and people the art and science of storytelling. So we do that through training, we do that through live training. We're not doing much of that anymore, so we're doing it almost exclusively, indeed exclusively on Zoom. And we also help companies craft their brand stories and get them out through a variety of PR and other channels. We started doing these little Friday chats about, I would say, in May, because you know, we're all sitting on like 1,000 webinars, right? Everybody suddenly, every work call or meeting like that could have been a phone call before the pandemic is now like a Zoom meeting. So, you know, we recognize like that a lot of that's going on, but in that there's been a real hunger for real casual conversation about issues that are topical and relevant, that is less a format of me lecturing you or telling you how it's going to be, and more having a conversation with, you know, in the case of today, two totally badass women who have a lot to share. And so they've all been incredibly fun for me to do. Like, I feel like I'm a morning show host. It's great. I'm like living my best life right now doing these things. And it's always the high point in my day. So, with me today, I have two fantastic women. Maggie, is that your puppy? She just needs
I'm sorry.
to join us. No, don't ever apologize. And with that said, like this is like the point of this. This is real life, right? We're all working at home. We got like things going on, kids, dogs, whatever, husbands, partners, wives. So that's all good. If she wants to join us, she would be totally welcome. We would love to have her. So quick housekeeping thing before I really dive in with you guys. If you're here and you're attending live, please feel free to use the chat box, which I will do my best to monitor between asking questions and facilitating the conversation. We want you guys to extract the most value as possible out of this. So that means getting in there and asking whatever questions you have. We want this to feel like a conversation. We'll also be posting this on our YouTube channel, which is just Story Imprinting on YouTube, so you can feel free to check that out. Okay, I have two totally fabulous women who I've had the tremendous pleasure of knowing for a very long time to talk about how small businesses can survive the craziness that is COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. So Puja Sachdev is someone that I have known for, gosh, Puja, I feel like 10 years now.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't even know where it started, but
I know.
Yeah.
Lawyer land, for sure. Actually, for both of you, both of these ladies are lawyers. And I remember coming to San Diego and hearing both of your names, right? And being like, and you it's a small town, right? So like, Puja's name, Maggie's name was always sort of bantered around in various legal leadership organizations and bar associations. And now I've had the tremendous pleasure of getting to know both of you guys personally. And it is my great privilege to know both of you personally. So Puja is a family law attorney. She runs an extremely busy office, managing a staff, and very high volume. I know Puja, having known Puja for so long, she functions at like this very high level all the time. Like her wheels are always turning. She's always, and she manages it all beautifully. And an example of that, I mean, look no further than just to how your firm was able to really transition to remote work, I would say very seamlessly at a time when, you know, the courts were closed and nobody kind of knew what that was gonna look like and all of that stuff. So Puja's gonna talk today in the course of this conversation just about kind of how leaders can lead strongly and to help their enterprises navigate sort of the bumps in the roads like the ones that we're currently encountering as a small business owner herself. And Maggie Schroedter is a partner at Higgs Fletcher and Mack. Maggie is a restructuring and business bankruptcy lawyer and litigator. And one of the things I can't wait to dive in with Maggie about is sort of this idea that like there are so many more options to you if you're struggling financially, economically in this crisis than just bankruptcy. And I also want to talk about like there's kind of like this cloud of negativity around bankruptcy and what that means, and sort of unpacking that for an audience, for a more layperson audience, right? For all of us who are lawyers, we kind of know some nuance. I probably had forgotten, more than I ever knew. No, wait, I don't know that much anymore because I don't practice law, but I'm like conversant, right? So, but I think for a lot of small business owners, there's a lot of panic right now. So I can't wait to talk to you guys, to both of you about that. And thank you for coming. So I want to start just by having each of you, I've given you an introduction, but I would love to know, I'd love the audience to know, who are you? Why do you do what you do? What do you love about what you do? And what kinds of problems are you helping people solve? Who wants to go first? Who wants
Okay,
to
I'll start.
first?
So thank you, Holly, for the great introduction. I love being here today and chatting with you guys over lunch. So what I do, and Holly, you gave a great introduction. I'm a business bankruptcy lawyer, but really what that means is I help small business owners who can't pay their creditors, right? I think obviously there's a lot of that going on right now, and I help them navigate this very difficult, emotional, and stressful financial situation that a lot of business owners and individuals find themselves in, particularly where we are right now. As Holly mentioned, I am a bankruptcy attorney and that's what I say, but a lot of the work I do is not actually in bankruptcy court. It's helping businesses figure out what the best path forward is for them. Sometimes that means a bankruptcy filing, which by the way, can offer a lot of benefits and protections for people in this place. That's why the bankruptcy code was invented, was really to help people who are struggling financially. So it does provide a lot of benefits, and it's not necessarily a death sentence or a death knell like a lot of people think. But I also help, these businesses restructure out of bankruptcy court and figure out a way to negotiate and deal with their creditors in such a way that allows them to continue operating their business, which is really what they want to do. I also help people who are owed money by someone that's in bankruptcy, right? So what we're also seeing a lot of is a lot of businesses are not getting paid by a lot of businesses that are struggling. And the idea is, okay, what do I do if I'm not getting paid? And what is my recourse against someone that is struggling financially and that's contemplating a bankruptcy filing, or who might be in bankruptcy? So that's really what I do. I think I just really help people when they're in this really where we are now is kind of what I am good at. And I think, Holly, why are you good at this? I think I really care. I have a lot of empathy for people. Money is one of those things that, people kind of brush aside. Oh, it's just money, but it's a very emotional and difficult situation to be in when you can't pay your bills, right? That's a tough place to be in.
There's a lot of shame associated with that, right?
Yeah, of course, a lot of shame. I mean, when I first moved to San Diego, I didn't have a job. I came out here by myself. I'd never been here. And I frankly was in a lot of credit card debt because I had no way to pay. And I remember being in that situation and feeling so overwhelmed. And when I finally got that paid off and got my student loans paid off, I just remember the sense of relief that I had. And that's kind of, I think, what drove me to get into this business, to help people have that same sense of relief and getting that burden, the financial burden off their shoulders.
But I want to just pause for a second, Puja, before we move to you, and thank you for sharing that story, because I think that's a story that everybody can relate to in some way. Like, I mean, I certainly remember being in law school. I was like waitressing at a bar until 3 a.m. and I still had debt because my parents weren't helping me. And, like your laptop dies, like, well, you got to put it on a credit card, like maxed out your student loans or whatever, like, or your car, something goes on your car. I mean, I want to point that out to everybody who's here, because I think like that is an example of how all the stuff that Anne Marie and I talk about, but using just a small story, and in that case, just kind of an anecdote, can draw people closer and say, oh yeah, like she's a person that gets me. Like she's just not some lawyer sitting in a high rise who's like knee deep in the bankruptcy code, right? Like 24 hours a day. Like she actually understands what this feels like. And I think that that's, I appreciate that vulnerability and sharing that, because we need more of that in business, God knows. So thank you, Maggie, for sharing that story. Yeah. Okay, Puja, tell us about yourself.
So as you said, I'm a family law attorney here in San Diego. Essentially, we do help people kind of end their unbearable marriages and find hope for the future again. So that is kind of, that's the day job. But what I'm really here really to talk to you more about is kind of from the business and leadership mindset. So kind of after working for a few other law firms, you really get to see like what different cultures
What not to
are
do.
in companies. Yeah, and especially law firms. And that's not what I wanted for the
Yeah.
rest of my career. What I To stay in family law. Family law itself has such a high burnout rate. You are working with people's emotions and really having to manage their expectations with their most prized priorities, their children, their money, their lives. So it was really my goal to do something a little bit different with my firm, and that's really was realizing that I had to take care of myself mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, so that I could take care of my team members in the same way, and having them being taken care of and knowing that they are a priority, their well-being can then help our clients, so they're in their their best selves in order to help our clients who are going through these really emotional times, and still can have a life for themselves and
Yeah.
not have the job be detrimental to them. It's still, it's still very taxing and everything, but so that's kind of really what I wanted to do a little bit differently, kind of this, this triangle like pyramid. Start
Yeah.
with me, make sure that my team's okay, and then we can then help our clients. So really, I've learned a lot about mindset, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But that's really,
Yeah.
I'm
Well, it's
really
like,
hoping that I can share, some of my own experience and thoughts to hopefully help one or
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, let's actually dive into that now because I think that's a great transition. When on March 13th, when all the schools closed, that's just like the I think that was the days like the 11th, 12th, or 13th. I remember distinctly like feeling like, okay, so like the kids are going to be here all day, and like my husband's going to be here all day too because I've worked from home forever. And I'm like, so everybody's going to be here. Okay. And like, how long is this going to last? And like, and I frankly, I will be the first to admit that in March, I was not, I was like flabbergasted by how quickly everything shut down. I mean, obviously we needed to do it and I'm all for that, supportive of that. But I was a little naive. Like I actually thought the kids were going to go back to school in April. Like what the hell was I thinking? My God. But that was my mindset, right? And so when it became apparent that we were sort of going to be in this situation for the foreseeable future and that we were plunging, sort of headlong into a recession, my mindset sort of went like, oh my God, like I was like flailing for a couple of days. And if I'm being honest, sometimes I still flail. But so talk to me a little bit, Puja, about, the decisions that you had to make as a business owner when it became apparent that like you were going to have to go remote and your people, like maybe they're helping take care of aging parents or they have children or they are not set up to work remotely. Like sort of what was your process in navigating all that?
I have to say the first decision was actually to say we are not essential, because it was kind of a lot of people, there was a lot of confusion, and we're lawyers considered essential, we work with families, what we do, is that essential? So that was really the first decision and I will say that my team, when these orders came down at night, it came out in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't watching TV. I didn't see the news. And usually I'm usually up on the local news, and then the text started blowing up, and I was like, what is going on? And we figured it out. And it was funny because I said, no, we can go to work tomorrow, right? And I was like, no.
Right.
And I was like, we are not essential. And the text were like, what do you mean we're not essential? So it was really that first decision that, okay, like, made it quick, and then we just had to go into a different mode of operating.
Yeah.
And the transition to home, it was, let them take whatever they need from the office to work. It wasn't like set times. I didn't expect them to be sitting in front of the computer,
Mm-hmm.
from 8 to 5. Just let them work, and understanding that they weren't going to, including me, weren't going to be able to have the output we would have had of sitting in our office. There was a lot of adjustments and flexibility. even with, and frustration, a lot of frustration, going to work from a laptop versus like our two screens and not having everything pulled up there, not having everything at hand. So there was a lot of adjustment. I think during that time, it was just like, just trying to just remind everybody, it's fine, it's okay, just go to something else, just forgive yourself and just go with grace and just be soft on yourself with everything else going on was pretty heavy. So it was kind of things were changing day by day. So it was really a really good test in adapting. So that was, I don't want to go back there, and I hope we don't have to again.
No.
We'd be well prepared.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing, right? Like if we do get into the situation in the fall, for example, where we go on some kind of really strict lockdown again, like do you feel like you've sort of laid the groundwork to be able to navigate that more easily a second time around, knowing that there's always like unforeseen things that pop up?
Oh yeah, and I will say that I'm not a work at home person.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I didn't know, that's not who I was. So for me to even, for my own personal way too, so I was going through it with them. It wasn't like they were experiencing something that I wasn't. It was hard to adjust also. So now knowing that it's okay, and doing things from home and having calls with people, and there's dogs barking, garbage trucks going by,
kids pop in, that happens here.
I mean, all sorts of things. So it's, but I think everybody as a whole was really just more forgiving for everything that everybody was going through. So it could be more casual. It could be, these interruptions. So so it was, I think it was a whole collective process for everybody that each person was a part of too.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you go through any of, I know you're in an office space, right?
Yes.
So you had obviously this is a scenario that so many businesses, whether you're a professional services firm or you're a restaurant or you're owner of a retail boutique or whatever, if you've got commercial, like a lease hanging over your head, like that's something that is stressful, right? I mean, did you feel that pressure? Like, okay, we've got this office space, we're not using it. Like, how does that shake out? Or was your mindset more like, we are going to go back at some point and we're just going to figure this out?
So I had the mindset that once this all started, that I wanted to thrive and not just survive. And I have to say that has brought us through this.
Yeah.
Once I had made my mind up that we were going to come out ahead, essentially, that was just it. There was just no other option for me. So it wasn't anything about my office space to think.
Yeah.
I can definitely understand. I mean, I can definitely understand people who maybe had vacant offices in their office space that they weren't using, or had people renting them out, or things like that, and people that have storefronts, that just have to shut completely.
Right.
Is quite overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think from a mindset perspective, what was really fascinating for me to watch, especially like in the early weeks of this, were like how restaurants were really starting to pivot, right? So, and I don't know, Maggie, if you represent, I think you have some restaurants. Yeah, and I would love to get your take on this too. But just watching them, like, okay, we've got all of this food, right, that we've bought that's going to go bad. So we need to we're going to start doing these market boxes, or we're going to start doing this, that, or the other, or we're going to shift our model to totally like a takeout model. Like by way of random example, we live decently close to Blue Water, the seafood place on India Street, Mission Hills, and you used to go there before the pandemic, and oh my God, like. It could never, I don't think it could ever like function in the same capacity as it did pre-pandemic, like at least right now, even with reopening stuff, because people are always packed in, right? But they've just basically moved to mostly takeout. I was there the other day and I was asking the checkout gal, like, how's this going? She's like, oh, we're loving it. Cause like, it's like, we do all the takeout business. People are still coming, which is great. And they did a really great job of getting their message out and letting people know that they were still there for this and making it easy for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
But they did, and I'm certainly not like trying to be Pollyanna and say that that's going to work all the time for everyone. But, like you, Puja, kind of one of the decisions that Anne-Marie and I made as service providers, essentially like you, when all this started is, we are going to lose some business, but we are also going to find the opportunity, in this time to maybe make a left turn or a right turn and do something that stretches us that is responsive to what the market is demanding, So I love that. And, Maggie, for you, like, I'm curious, when we were talking in preparation for this session, I was asking you, do you help people with like commercial space renegotiations? And you had said yes, which is something that I did not know, but I'd love to know now because people, I feel like I get an inquiry a day of someone like wanting to know if I know somebody who does that. So have you seen a lot of that? Like, was that sort of, as the pandemic started and even now, is that something as people are sort of looking at how do we reduce expenses that people are wanting to engage your services to do? And, kind of what are the circumstances where that maybe makes sense? Do you think tenants have more leverage than maybe they think they do right now? Lots of questions.
Absolutely. And that's typically part of what I do, just because when you're advising a business owner or someone with respect to, potential ways to restructure or move forward or potentially dissolve the business if that's the decision that is made. Part of that, in almost all cases, is a commercial lease, right? They have lease for the space. So negotiations with landlords happen frequently. Now, you're absolutely right. I think that something that is potentially overlooked by business owners is that they actually have a lot more leverage than they may think and then in normal times. And the reason for that is, first of all, there's currently still a moratorium on commercial and residential evictions in San Diego. They just extended it till the end of June. And given where we are, I anticipate it's going to be extended again. The courts, because they were closed for such a long time, everything is backed up. So commercial landlords really have very little remedy right now against a tenant who's not paying rent. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is that the commercial landlord probably wants to keep the tenant in the space. They do not want to go out right now in this environment, especially when you're looking at tenants like restaurants, right? In particular, they don't want to go out right now and try to find a new tenant because restaurants are all going through this kind of what you and Puja were just speaking about, this sort of restructuring phase in a way, like how are they going to adapt to this new social norm? The last thing they're doing is looking for a bigger, more expensive lease, right? They're trying to probably get smaller. They're adapting to social norms. They're doing more takeout. They're, doing things to continue to survive during the pandemic. So the point is, landlords don't have a lot by the way of leverage, and it's a great time to restructure those long-term liabilities. I think most landlords probably still want you there. They want something coming in the door. So the best way to do that is to start negotiating with them and say, here's where we are. We can't pay all this, but we'll pay this, and just open up the door to those negotiations.
Yeah. What are some things that you guys think small business owners might be overlooking right now in terms of how to chart their paths forward? Sort of in this really uncertain time, Puja, for you, is that a mindset or leadership issue? What do you think people should be thinking about? And Maggie, kind of getting down to brass tacks, like what are some strategic things that they might be overlooking? Either one of you can hop at that, whichever one.
Well, I did mention the mindset, and I think that, I knew that was important, and it's critical as a business owner. And a lot of the things that I did think were important before, during this period became even tenfold more important. The mindset part of it, like I said, how I decided that, I want to thrive, not just survive. And that kind of sets the mood and kind of helped direct my decisions through this time period. And so I think maybe what some business owners are overlooking is that taking care of themselves. And taking care of themselves, and they can then take care of their family, their responsibilities, and then take care of their team as well. And then that also will help with the business. So I think that if business owners are overlooking something, I think they're overlooking taking care of themselves. And with the mindset, it's really about getting rid of all of the fluff, the unneeded criticism. You don't have to talk to everybody about what's going on with your business. People that aren't, they're not stakeholders.
Right.
So what they say and what they think doesn't matter, and it all just becomes noise in your head. So I think getting that clarity in order to make business decisions. And you mentioned something about pivoting, and that's what I think. Not having the clarity and the clear mindset is not allowing to make business decisions, which then you can't be stuck in that analysis paralysis.
Right. Yeah. I was just about to say that exact
phrase. That where you're taking so long to make a decision, and you're just stuck. It's almost like you're just treading water. You're not going anywhere. You're not moving forward. Nothing. So that analysis paralysis, to get out of that, having the right mindset and clarity to make the decisions, and then being able to set some benchmarks or measurements that if you're going to try a new product, or you're going to put something different on your website to sell, or a different type of service, like try something new, set some benchmarks, a time period, and some measurements, and then be objective, and then check in to see if it's working or not. If it's not working, then make the objective decision to pivot, try something else, or tweak it, or something like that. So this is what I've found during this period, is that, and like I said, this is all kind of like a trickle down, by taking care of yourself, the mindset, the clarity, the decision making, and then being able to make these decisions very quickly, because that's what I've had to find, and I'm still doing it. So just because now, things have opened up a little bit and our courts are open, and so we're, have that aspect back, it's still a matter of, things are changing so fast that making these decisions and making them, so it's just fail fast and learn faster.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great quote. And you should write a piece about that. Like, you need to write a piece and pitch it to like Harvard Business Review. Go do it. It's so easy for me to say that to people, and then and I'm like, I can't write it though. I do feel like, especially, being a lawyer and kind of understanding how we're, as lawyers, are conditioned to think, we get very accustomed to doing things in a certain way. Right. I think that applies to all of us, frankly, everybody, whether you're a lawyer or not, right? You get used to doing business as usual in a certain way. And we are resistant. I think we are hardwired to resist like abrupt change. And it becomes, very difficult to like make a decision. And some of the best advice like my mom gave me a million years ago was like, you just have to do the best you can with the information you have at hand at the time, right? Like, your hindsight is always going to be 20/20 vision. And the fact of the matter is, we all are humans, and we're not going to navigate any of this perfectly. But being able to be decisive, especially when you're leading an organization and you have people looking to you to sort of be like, it's all going to be okay, and we're going to navigate this one way or the other. I think that's huge, and it just, it requires kind of being nimble. I was just talking to a colleague who does public relations, just on LinkedIn earlier today. And we were, she was like, what are you up to? And I was like, we're doing all these trainings, and we're charging like a minimal amount for the training. I mean, we charge with, we're giving great content, and it's very abbreviated, and we're marketing it, and we're becoming like content machines. And that's what we're doing, and like, people are responding to it. And it's not how I thought I was going to be spending 2020 for sure, but it's challenging me, and it's money is coming in the door, and we're reaching people, and we're building an aspect of the business that we needed to grow a following anyway, right? Because we're a new business. And so I think, I'm really grateful that I have a partner who you guys both know, Anne-Marie, who is definitely like always pushes me to think expansively and creatively and do better. But I think that's a skill that like you can hone, right? If you're watching this and you're like, no, there's no way I could ever do that. You absolutely can. You just have to give yourself the space, to think creatively and expansively.
I think part of that too, Holly, if you don't mind that I jump in, I think a lot of that too. So I'm helping a client right now who he owns 2 restaurants in San Diego. And he's very emotionally invested in both restaurants, as any business owner is. And after careful consideration, we've made the decision that one of them is just simply not viable, right? So I think some of that analysis and calculation needs to come from an objective place and say, okay, what is really working here? I need to really examine my enterprise from an objective, as Puja said, clear-minded mind frame, and say, this one's not working for me. This one's just bleeding money. Instead, we're going to put all of our resources, time, and energy into the one that we think is going to survive.
Right.
It was very difficult for him to let this branch go, but ultimately that was the right business decision for him and his family. So I think it's, to Puja's point, taking an objective look at your business. What do you produce or create or do that creates value to your consumers? And is that particular enterprise going to be still viable when we emerge from this or through this transition, which I think is going to be longer than anyone initially anticipated, right? And if that enterprise or if that part of your business is not working anymore, or it's not able to adapt for whatever reason, then you got to cut the cord, right? And there's ways to be able to do that efficiently, and there's ways to get back past that so you can continue to be successful in whatever way that turns out to be, right? So
well, and I think this underscores, frankly, I mean, this is a question I had for Puja too, is like, for both of you, I'll make the statement and then I'm curious to see how this is like, what you think, how you respond to it. You know, the value of outside advisors, of having people that are going to give you feedback, that are going to give you that mutual feedback. I mean, I think a lot of small business owners probably think, I can't afford to hire a lawyer to help me do this. I can barely pay my bills anyway. I'm just going to like flail with this analysis paralysis and hope for the best. I mean, that is, as a strategy, is not sound, right? And so, I mean, I would imagine, based on what I'm hearing, is in the long run, you're saving this guy a ton of money, right? Like, he's paying you for your expertise. You're coming in, you're able to say, to give a real honest assessment based on your understanding of the facts and your years and years of experience doing this and helping other companies navigate the waters like this. You can give him a plan forward that he can go execute on, you know, and I think, so I would be curious to hear sort of your opinion on that, Maggie, and as well, Puja, for you, like, to what extent do you rely on outside advisors as you're sort of helping, you know, as you're sort of fashioning your own strategy as a leader?
When you use the word advisors, which is a good word to use. When I was saying earlier, you know, get rid of the other noise and the toxic people and that are just giving their unsolicited opinions, or, you know, you don't need to be asking your neighbor, or, you know, certain people are just, and you don't, other business owners are a good resource, but also make sure that they are in the mindset that you want to either emulate or you want to benefit from, and you can help them. So don't go, you know, so also don't talk to somebody that's in a negative space either. But when you're talking about advisors can be very helpful because they have that objectivity that you may not have. And also, it's also the same thing. It's like you're in all of this. You're living it, you're breathing it, and it's, you know, you have that personal connection to your business. So having somebody give you that outside advice there's nothing to replace that. And it also just makes you think differently. And that's part of also one of the things I think you have to, leaders need to be very intentional with everything they do and decide how they want to lead and how they want to run their business. I think a lot of people also are just kind of day by day, just kind of winging it and going, you know, just handling things as they come, but also being that very intentional about everything and having that clarity that Maggie was saying is that, so to make those decisions about the other business, if that business owner was not actually, you know, in the right space, they may have not sought the help and not have been able to make that decision where running both spaces would have probably brought the business under and not have survived this. So, you know, that's where this all comes into play. But advisors are, you know, can be worth their money in gold.
Right.
I mean, I agree with that, and in particular because I think a lot of my experience has been that a lot of folks just don't know what their options are just because they've never been in the situation before, right? And I think this is unprecedented for everyone. So you hear the word bankruptcy thrown around and it sounds terrifying, but in reality, there are so many other options. And I think the best thing, at least that I can offer, is to tell people, here's what all your options are, and then we can pick the best one. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, most of my clients don't understand that it either just seems black or white. There's either bankruptcy, which suggests failure, and which is not the case, by the way, but that's what it suggests to a lot of people that don't, when you're first hearing that word, and then it's just struggling through. So I think there's this whole middle ground of options that are available to people, especially right now, that, only people that really practice in this area can help with. And like Puja said, and business owners themselves who are living and breathing it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think it's incredibly valuable.
And that objectivity that you can get from an advisor can also help you look at things a little bit differently too, because what comes a lot with the territory of being a business owner is that fear of failure and that shame. So Maggie, like, you're talking about throwing out that word bankruptcy, it is, I think that word comes with a lot of shame, but that's not, that doesn't have to be the be all and end all result. There can be the restructuring, there can be different things, there can be some renegotiating of things, like closing, one of the restaurant spaces. So I think doing all of that in just the bigger picture of as the business owner and getting things very clear for you and having the advisors also takes away that shame that you may be thinking it's either like the black and white, failure or success. But that's such a huge spectrum. And even to get to success, you've all seen that, the meme that, that it goes like this,
right.
To get to where you are. So it's this constant roller coaster. And I think just looking at that a little bit less personal is the way to get through it, rather than just sit in it in that.
Right. Also, I'll just say, I obviously represent a lot of clients in the space, and every single one of them comes in, they don't want to meet me, they don't want to be talking about bankruptcy, they're emotional, they feel a sense of shame. And what I tell them is, look, everyone that I help through this process is successful, will be successful, and was successful, right? This is just a rough patch in their career. Like, I had a plastic surgery client, he's a plastic surgeon, runs his own practice. He's incredible at what he does. He has an amazing reputation as a plastic surgeon. His business went through a rough time, and we had to help him restructure. He's still now out there practicing. We were able to restructure his debt such that he was able to survive, and now he's out there practicing. So it's not a shame thing. It's just everybody goes through, or most people, right? They struggle at one point or another, and it's how to get past that and get you to a place where you can move forward.
And there's such like deep-seated, like our attitudes about money and success and failure are so nuanced, and like in how we were raised, what we saw growing up, like what, experiences we had. I see Sheena Sani's on here Hi, Sheena. And we did a financial focus session with her and another friend of ours who's an accountant about a month ago, just talking about like personal finances, how to keep all of this stuff, how to keep your cool whenever everything's going crazy in the world around you. And, we talked at length about the fact that like people sometimes just, they want to be an ostrich. Like, I've been this person. It's like, you're putting your head in your sand. You're like, la, 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 I do not want to think about this. Oh my God, stress, stress, stress. And that's totally colored by, that is a product of a lifetime of influence about money, right? That's just what it is. And so I totally can understand where, if you're a small business owner, you've created your business from nothing, and you have poured yourself into it. And so sometimes it's hard to divest like that piece of your identity from what is happening with the business right now. And so, but this is a great time actually to read something that one of our attendees, Jackie, who's also a lawyer, said to all of us. She said, Maggie is helping one of my clients through a rough time, and he is likely to end up with a business. He absolutely believed he was calling her to help him wind up his business and figure out how to find a job. Asking for Maggie's help made all the difference, which is so lovely. And what a great testament. And thank you, Jackie, for saying that.
Thank you, Jackie. That's
I think so, we kind of touched on this already, but like bankruptcy is a dirty word. We talked about that. But what are other things that people could consider, right, to help their business become profitable? What are some, and also for both of you, you know, like, what do you think, what sort of creative thinking, creative problem solving, creative solutions should people be gearing their minds toward as we sort of head into the rest of the year?
Well, I think we touched on this a little before, and it's really just kind of, and Puja did a great job of talking about this, is really how your business can adapt to the new social changes and norms. For example, I have a friend who, he owns a wine bar, right? And it got shut down completely. And, you know, I was like, terrified for him. And instead of, you know, having his customers, he started doing deliveries. They started selling to-go cocktails. They had takeout wine orders, and frankly they're just starting to sort of reopen very carefully and all these things, but they not only survived, but I think were probably maybe even more profitable than they were. He reduced his expenses, negotiated with his landlord, and I think they're probably were more profitable than they were previously, right? And so part of that goes into one of, I think, a good goal is to really sit down and prioritize your short-term versus your long-term liabilities, and which liabilities can you restructure. I have a lot of clients that'll come to me a week before they can't make payroll, right? And you want to start earlier than that, right? You want to, we have to make payroll, we have to pay utilities, we have to pay these, you know, essential operating expenses. What are the liabilities we can really sit down and try to renegotiate or figure out how to pay those later? And by the way, yeah, like you said, Holly, all of this we can be doing outside of court, right? We're restructuring outside. So that's part of it, is just figuring out a way to developing a plan, a strategic business plan about what needs to be paid today and what can be paid later, and how can we restructure those to make it viable for your enterprise.
Yeah. Puja, what do you think?
So you mentioned creativity. So for, you know, there's only so much creativity that I have. So this is something where you can really bring in your team. I mean, this is where they can really, really help. But in order to really do that and value what your team has to say, is that you have to trust in them. And that's, I know, can be very hard. It can be very hard to do that, because that involves delegating, that involves, it's really giving them the opportunity to succeed with new challenges, you know, different type of work and different responsibilities. So delegation, and I know every business owner knows this, so it is hard.
Yeah.
It's also freedom for you. It gives them a buy-in into the whole business, into the whole company. So when they feel ownership and that they are contributing to the business as a whole, it's very different, I think, the way then your team actually performs and thinks of the business. So giving, you know, I bring my team in on a lot of decision making. Clearly not the very high level, but very, you know, on things like, what do you think about this, or what, you know, and you get I've gotten some great ideas from them, and especially if they're working on something, you know, and they have different lives outside of work and different exposure to things. So the creativity can really also come from your team. So yeah. I know that delegation is really hard, but it's always a work in progress. But doing that and getting them more involved is the key, I think, to even helping to grow your business with ideas.
Yeah.
An example for my team, when we kind of did our whole rebranding and did new logos and everything, at the final.
I just threw my coffee against the wall. Like, that's gonna leave a mark. Please go ahead.
So when we had like the final shake of the logos, I didn't even know what to do with them. I didn't even.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. It was too personal, and I just couldn't do it. And they both, at the time, just picked one and said, "This is it." And I said, "Okay,
yeah,
this is our logo." So I mean, it's something like that.
That feels like a really big decision, but at the end of the day, like, do you remember what the other ones looked like? Like, no, you have a logo. That's good. Maybe you do.
Yeah. But I mean, they're like, this is you know, this is the one. I'm like, okay, this is the one. Right. So that's what, you know, really giving them the ownership and really feeling like they want the business to succeed, and they will have great ideas. So ask them, listen to them, be transparent with what's going on with the business. And I think people will be surprised if they kind of allow uh, that openness with the people that are around you, because you can't do it without them, and they can't do it without you. So
Right. And
why pretend that you can?
what I'm hearing from both of you, frankly, like both in this more, internally driven, steering the ship perspective, Puja, that you're sharing, and then Maggie, just in terms of like the decisions that have to be made about the structure of the business and all the liabilities and stuff. It's like, you're not an island, I mean, none of us are an island. And people who try to function that way or lead that way or make decisions from that way, I mean, obviously, like to your point, Puja, don't ask like the mailman and, everybody that you interact with, like what you should do. But, to me, it's like, I am so much better at what I do because I am willing to listen to feedback and to get opinions on and to actually not opinions, I'm sorry, to seek actual strategic counsel. That is a much better way of phrasing it, because opinions are like, everybody has those. So how can people find you? Tell us like all of your your email, your website, all of that kind of thing. I mean, Puja, people are still getting divorced, so courts are open for business, right? So all of that is happening. Like, tell everybody how we can find you.
Probably the easiest way, you can just go online. Our website is sachdevfamilylaw.com, SACHDEV, familylaw.com, and then you can get the phone number, email, everything from there. And
Awesome.
when you contact us, your first point of contact is going to be Elisa, or Ellie as we call her. And so, she would go from there to get you started on anything you need.
Awesome. I love it. And Maggie, how about you?
Yeah, so my firm's website, I'm at Higgs, Fletcher & Mack, and my firm's website is higgslaw.com, so HIGGSLAW.com.
Okay.
My email address can be found there. My name's Maggie Schroedter. I would spell it for you, but frankly, it's going to be easier if you just go to the website and find it on there rather than me spelling it for you.
Right.
So yeah, my email, my contact information is on there. If you have any questions, especially about the more sort of scary, convoluted bankruptcy world, I'm happy to just answer your questions as well and see if I can help you.
I'm just laughing to myself because before we get on here, I wanted to make sure with Puja that I didn't like mispronounce her last name, and I've been mispronouncing your last name for as long as I've known you. So there's that.
I didn't even notice.
Schroedter. I said Schroedter. I had a really good friend, Mary Beth Schroedter, growing up, and it's like stuck in my mind.
They're both German. They're both
never
German,
again.
So.
No, never again will I do that. Thank you guys both so much for attending. If anybody, while I'm wrapping, if anybody who's here has questions, please drop them in the chat. But I do hope that you will remember both of these women and what they do as you need, whether for yourself or if you need to make referrals. As I said, I've known both of them for many years, and I have the highest confidence in their professional competency and capability. And we are doing this every Friday again. So next week, we will be doing a session on imposter syndrome, which is something that comes up so often with especially with our female clients that we work with, that Anne-Marie and I work with. And so we'll just be having a really frank discussion with two totally amazing women of just very different backgrounds and experience about their shared experiences around imposter syndrome. So look for that. You can just follow Story Imprinting on LinkedIn, and I will have it posted. And then we are also doing a training on executive presence. It's through Zoom. That's going to be on July 22nd, and you can find that on Eventbrite and also on our social media channels as well. LinkedIn is kind of where we live. So, I mean, if you're like looking for us on Instagram, you might find a picture of like Anne-Marie's and my sneakers or something, but like nothing, find us on LinkedIn for all the good shareable content and on YouTube. Thank you guys again for sharing your Friday with us. I'm going to clean some coffee off my wall. I'm sorry that you all, I mean, that was like so loud here, so I can't imagine what it was like on your computer speaker or your phone speaker. So I'm off to do that, but I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and take good care.
Thank you, Holly.
Bye, guys.
Bye.